a teenage film snob, baby. I was a teenage film snob, baby.
Welcome to I Was a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighborhood film snob. We're back with another industry interview, which is very exciting for me. First filmmaker guest to make a return appearance. And not because other filmmakers don't like the show, they just haven't made anything else since. But this guy is an absolute workhorse. Last year, you may remember my interview with him, and we talked about his debut theatrical film, Edge X, which was a really harrowing portrait of addiction and drug use and kind of how that impacts people. It's this massive epic that could only be likened really to something like Requiem for a Dream. It was really quite full on. And then earlier this year, or maybe even late last year, he announced he had a new flick coming out. And of course, I was immediately excited because I loved Edge X so much. And when I saw that trailer, I was immediately haunted because I was getting those same vibes and feels from Edge X. But instead, we're still kind of following the route of addiction to a certain extent, but a much more grounded and kind of intense portrayal of humanity, which we'll get into. He is the director of Beautiful Pam, which is currently doing festivals and screenings right now, and hopefully coming to you very, very soon. Please welcome back to the show, J.R. Stokes. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me, James. I'm a huge fan of the show, as you know, so it's always great. I love being on the show.
Thanks, man. I was so excited. I can't remember when you reached out to me. It might have even been last year now. And I was like, oh man, I'm on a hiatus. Like we're closed up. But as soon as I'm back, I think you even tried to send it to me early, and I was like, not because I want to see it, but like right now I'm up to my elbow in Baby, and I want me to give it the attention it deserves. And you're a filmmaker, you're a storyteller. I know who. Like some films, like we were talking about this just before, like some films are popcorn films. If you put them on the background and look away, like you're not going to miss too much. You don't want to miss a second of a J.R. Stokes film. Like there's so much going on. So I actually just watched it yesterday, which is good because it's fresh in my mind. But first of all, congratulations, man. Like this is such a triumph of a film. How's it been? Like I've been seeing you kind of going around doing all sorts of festivals and stuff. What's it been like?
Yeah. It's been exciting, I mean, we're really grateful for people to just take an hour out of their day to watch it, and to have that opportunity to do that over and over the past couple months, to reach different places and have different screenings in different places. It's been cool. We're really grateful for it. And as we're doing this interview, the movie's online on YouTube right now for anyone listening that wants to watch it. Yeah, it's been exciting. I mean, that's the biggest thing when it comes to filmmaking for me is I just want people to sit down, watch it, and forget about the world for a few hours.
I mean, look, I did forget about the world for the hour, but look, the world that you paint isn't always the most glossy and pretty. But it's a challenging flick in the best possible way. I knew kind of what I was getting into with this because I saw Edge X, as we talked about. And Edge X, for anyone who hasn't watched it yet, like it's free on YouTube. Go and check it out. It's about 2 hours and change, but it is harrowing. And it like I really mean it. Like, so when I say there's nothing like it except maybe Requiem for a Dream, I haven't seen any other kind of film about drug use that feels as earnest and as sobering. Most films kind of glamorize drugs, or even if they try to demonize them, there's kind of an element of glamour. Your flick does not have that. Like it's very just like this is what it is. Like this is the horrible truth. Yeah. So when the trailer for Pam dropped, I was like, well, this is probably gonna be an intense experience, and I watched it. And the first thing that really grasped me was what a step up in quality the flick is. And that's not saying, oh, Edge X is bad quality, not at all. But Edge X, was your first film, and this looks like a flick that would be like I don't know whether it's the cameras you're using or your DP or what it is, but it looks as good as anything that the studios are pumping out in terms of visual quality, I suppose. It's a huge step up, which is very, very cool. Not to mention the subject matter, and I can't pronounce his surname, but Tom, who plays the lead.
Yeah.
Like if there's any justice in how do you pronounce his last name?
Corsiari.
I was going to definitely butcher it as a Corsiari. I mean, I can't even say it's a transcendence performance because I've never seen him do anything else. But, like, if there's any justice in the world, like, this guy would be getting nominations left and right. Like, what an incredible performance that he brought to it and what you were able to get out of him.
I agree.
So for those who haven't been paying attention or haven't picked up on it, Beautiful Pam basically follows the life of a a queer sex worker. So for most of their adult life, they identified as a man. They're a father with a child who's about to turn 18. They're recently divorced and has now realized there's more. I guess they kind of they're in a real identity crisis. They're trying to kind of
Yeah.
figure out who they are. They struggle with drug addiction and sex addiction. Um,
Mhm.
and they've kind of turned to a life of, I guess, sex work, but it almost seems to me less out of necessity and more to kind of fill something. But what I really dig about it is because, like, on paper, people are like, "Oh my god, that sounds really upsetting," and it is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not an upsetting film. Like, people say horrible things, and you've
Mhm.
got so many returning cast members as well from EdgeX. I
Yeah.
kind of like picked a few up there, which is very cool. But
Yeah.
what it ultimately is, it's this love story, but not romantic love. It's this kind of journey for self-love and acceptance. And
Mhm.
I just don't know how you do it, man. Like we talked, like I remember in the last interview, I was like, "How old are you again?" You're like 19. I'm like, "What?" Like I lost my mind. I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like
Right.
I think that most, kind of experience. And when I say experience, obviously you've got experience, but like people have been in the game for decades. I think they would struggle to paint something so raw and humanistic. But like I don't know, it's just a magic trick. It's just a magic trick of a film. Um,
I appreciate it, James. Thank you.
where did the idea of Pam come from? Like, you clearly like to focus on the fringe of society. You like to look
Absolutely.
at things kind of that's a little bit left of center, and that's what me saying. Like, obviously the subject matter is
Yeah.
very important and topical right now. But where does the
Mm.
idea for Pam come from? Because when I was 19 and 20, I wasn't thinking about that at all. I was thinking about well, I'm still thinking about the same stuff. Spider-Man, Mario. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you obviously, like, your fingers so on the pulse. Like, where does
Right.
Pam come from?
Well, you brought up a great point earlier. You said it's a movie about love, but it's not necessarily the type of love we all think of when we hear that
Mm,
word, right? It's a movie about self-love, right? It's sort of
mm,
loving yourself, which is the idea of that is not something we actually see Pam go through throughout the movie, right? We see Pam like resent themselves, and we see
mm,
the world around Pam fail to accept them for who they are. So it's a search for love, and in viewing that search, it's difficult. It's tough.
mm,
This is someone that's trying to figure themselves out and figure their life out. And then that's applicable to so many of us, from all walks of life. And as far as coming up with Pam as a character, we talked about this in our previous interview over a year ago. I like to try and write from a personal point of view,
mm,
when it comes to reflecting on the world and reflecting on myself. So a lot of what Pam is expressing about himself or about the world around them, that's me writing through the character.
mm.
However, it's through the lens of someone who is not me at all, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay, because if every movie was me, then it would be boring, right? I want to write from perspectives of people who I want to learn about, and I want to get to know. I want to understand them. I want to understand people. And saying that, in the two films I've done so far, I've been trying to tell stories about people that we don't see enough of and we don't talk about enough of. And that's probably the most important thing for me.
I agree. Pardon me. What was it like writing? Pardon me, from the perspective of a trans character? I suppose, like, like, I don't want to put labels in there. Like, it's Pam never kind of openly identifies as trans, but like, if you like, there's definitely kind of hints that that's probably what is going on in their life right now. Obviously, a very um, very much in the cultural zeitgeist at the moment. Kind of the conversation around trans rights and transitioning.
Yeah.
Back when I was a kid, I was talking about this just yesterday. Like, when I was a kid, you didn't really hear or see people going through that process, and that's not because it wasn't there. Just there wasn't a kind of a magnifying glass on it. And now that we've kind of progressed as a society, like some would argue regressed in some areas as well, but we've
Yeah.
mostly progressed. We're having more open conversations. It is being talked about by a lot of people. And I
Mhm.
find it's a very delicate subject matter. It's very easy if you misunderstand, or if you're naive, then it can very easily go from loving to offensive very quickly. So was that a tightrope walk for you? Did you find it was quite easy to write a character like that? What was that process like?
I think tightrope for me is is not a word I would have used to describe my process and all of
Mm,
our process trying to find the character in the story, you know, because we were all very protective over Pam and their
mm,
story. We were very
mm,
protective over all of these characters. And at the very least, as you said earlier, talking about queer rights and trans rights, these are very important things that we need to keep discussing and we need to
mm,
keep in our lane, right? We need to keep viewing these things
mm,
and talking about these things. That's extremely important. I think the world of Beautiful Pam, it's about people who are flawed, not because of who they are, but because of their actions and what
mm.
they say to one another. And that's what being a human is, right?
Yeah.
Some people are great for their intentions and some people want to be great, but some people also can't stay out of their own way. And that goes back to sort of the addiction aspect of Pam, right? Pam is an addict, right?
Mm,
Pam is trying to find themselves, and that's wonderful. But Pam is also an addict. And we see throughout the film that Pam struggles with addiction. Pam struggles with maintaining their family life, right?
mm,
In one of the scenes earlier in the film, their ex-wife, Lauren, says, it's not about who you want to be. It's not about the dress and the wig and the makeup.
mm,
It's not about who you want to be. It's about this and that and the infidelity. And, you know, um, that is sort of the perspective we had on the movie was let's be honest with ourselves. But let's
mm,
also be protective over the material at hand. Because this is a story that we all felt strongly needed to be told. And again, there are people out there who may not be able to relate to Pam's lifestyle, but they can absolutely relate to how Pam feels about themselves. And that to me is the beauty about being a person. We're all trying to figure out how to be a
mm.
person. We're all
Yeah.
trying to figure out how to navigate life. And in Pam's case, being a queer sex worker, that's okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's interesting you say that because I found that myself sitting there, like identifying with Pam in so many ways. It's like you're absolutely right. Like I don't necessarily identify with maybe Pam's sexual identity or lifestyle and stuff like that in terms of like working as a sex worker, but definitely do those very human elements. I was like, well, I've definitely said that to myself before. I've definitely like felt shitty at times. Like it's pretty. That is very very human. Um, I should have memorized the cast. I've done a really bad job there, so I apologize. But the actress who plays Pam's ex-wife is also fantastic. Brings a really another again like humanistic is a word I'm going to use, like this really humanistic quality. And what I love about that performance and that character is it would be so easy for you guys to be like, well, she hates Pam.
Mhm.
She hates Pam. Pam ruined her life. She hates him, and she's kind of like, and she's not going to give Pam any leeway. But there's
Mhm.
so much love there. Like it's another character who's like, I don't love your actions. I don't love what you've done, but I still like. There was room for love in the past. We had this loving relationship, and I'll always love you in a way. That was quite surprising. I just feel like whenever I watch a J.R. Stokes film, I just expect the road less traveled. I'm like, you're always going to go in directions that, like,
I would hope so. I
yeah,
appreciate
like I don't want to say unsafe path because it's not
it.
that, but it's like unsafe in terms of the comfort of the cinema. Like
Mhm.
Beetle, another fantastic character. Like
Mhm.
for 90, and I won't spoil anything, but for 90% of the film, but this guy's great. Like he's a terrible person. Like like he's fueling the addiction. All that sort
Yeah,
of stuff. He's an enabler, but like that is a real dude, and he's funny. And such a 180 from his previous performance in Edge X, where he's like much more
yeah,
straight laced.
yes.
And then the
He was a great
shoe
actor.
drops in the final sequence, and I was like, you made me like this guy, and now I feel awful. Like,
Oh, a lot of that has to do with Peter's performance, because
mm,
he's so charismatic in that
mm,
role. He really is, and he's so likable. And even
mm,
in the scenes where we like him and we want to like him, he's still saying some really bad stuff, and that's so easy to like look past because that performance is so charismatic and Peter did such a wonderful job with
mm,
that. And Peter was so dedicated to that. We've talked about it behind the scenes amongst all of us, but we've said that Tom, who plays Pam, was very physically transformative, right? And
mm,
trying to become that role and trying to be very respectful of that material. Whereas Peter, as Beetle, was much more from like a figurative standpoint of being someone who Peter is not at all, right?
yeah,
And that was exciting to capture, and it was fun, and it was a lot of work. Peter and Tom had been attached to the role to this point. We're recording this at the end of March. They've been attached to these roles for over 2 years.
yeah.
So it's been exciting. And talking about Beck Fordyce, who plays the ex-wife Lauren, she's also from Australia.
Oh
Um,
wow.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. She's using an American accent in the film.
Yeah.
She's from Australia, and she was great. And um, she brought a lot of human elements to that performance, right? And she brought a lot of her own personal perspective on this story and her life, and that sort of thing. She brought that into the performance. I think transferring Pam and Lauren, their relationship from paper to screen, there was a lot of communication between the actors themselves, right?
Mm.
Like figuring it out together amongst themselves of like, hey, let's maybe approach it this way because I'm feeling this way about myself in this particular moment. And that was a really wonderful thing we ironed out in the rehearsal room. We rehearsed this film for about 2 weeks before shooting started. So
Yeah.
we had quite a few days to sit down and say to ourselves, well, maybe I could say this differently, or maybe I could do this differently. Maybe I can react to this differently. So I really appreciate that you recognize that.
Yeah, the casting is incredible. Like everyone, like you do see. I think quite commonly with independent films, there tends to be a big focus on your leads. Like you do see that with a lot of films. It's like we need to get them, and then obviously independent films, there's a lower budget. There's maybe less resources. So sometimes you'll see like the bit players. Maybe just like we just got to get someone in that role, but it feels like with everything you've done now, like with both films, every casting choice has been so deliberate. Like even later on, Pam meets another trans person and kind of enters a somewhat casual relationship with them, at least temporarily, and that's Chester from Edge X. So
Yes,
like,
it is. Yes,
um,
it is.
as soon as they came on screen, I'm like, I know that face. I'm like,
Yes, yes,
um, it feels like you're kind of doing that thing that I love with independent filmmakers, where you've kind of built your cavalcade, your kind of roster of performers you like to work with, and now just finding different ways to get them in the role, and they're still right for the role, which is really nice. It's not just like, oh well, I want them in the movie.
yeah,
What was the casting process like outside of that? Obviously, you've got some familiars there, but
yeah,
Beck, you said was new, and Tom was new. What was that whole process like? Was
yeah.
Pam hard to find?
Pam was written for Tom to play.
Okay.
I wrote Pam specifically for Tom to play that role, along with Beetle for Peter as well.
Mm,
Um, you know, I'm in New York. We're all in New York, so there's a lot of theater stuff going on here,
mm,
and so Tom and Peter, coming from the theater world, um, they were able to bring me different people. Like, hey, man, think about this guy, or let's,
mm,
you want this guy to send in a tape. Here's what he's done previously. And ultimately, they were wonderful. They came on board not only as actors, but they also helped executive produce the film as well. So things like that, bringing things to me and saying, "Hey, man, this guy's talented.
mm.
Do you want him to audition?" That was a really, really wonderful, helpful process. I mean, there were so many great people that worked on this film from top to bottom. But specifically, as far as the casting process goes, I I want people that work on these films, these stories that I'd like to tell, I want them to take ownership of the material. And that's not always an easy task. That's not an easy ask. And that's also not an easy thing to process. Especially for the stories that we are telling that like you said do kind of reflect the fringe of society. People we don't see enough about. However, in saying that and asking people to take ownership of the material, you know, uh, they're going to come take ownership. They're going to want to have their input. And that was something I had to navigate personally as a director is I'm telling our cast to take ownership. So I'm having to learn how to navigate around that, like navigate people coming to me and bringing me their own suggestions and their own ideas and working with that and collaborating with that. And that was a lot of fun. That was a great part of the casting process, finding people who really cared about the material.
And what do you think were maybe some of the biggest changes or biggest challenges from your first film to this film? Because again, like tonally, they've got a lot of similarity and they do kind of focus on similar themes, but they couldn't be
Mhm.
more different. Like I watch Edgex and I'm like, yeah, this feels like someone's first film,
Yeah.
and it's a great first film. But then
Thank
watching,
you.
as I said before, like watching this, it's just like the only thing I can compare it to, and it's gonna be a weird comparison, so just follow me on this for a second. It feels like when Quentin Tarantino made Jackie Brown and then he disappeared for 7 years. And
Yeah.
then he came back with Kill Bill, and you're like, what happened? Like, did he go on like a spiritual journey? And like,
Yeah.
because like I love Jackie Brown, but like you, like I like his first three films, but you watch those three films and then watch the jump in Kill Bill. You're
Mm,
like,
yeah.
was he just like, with a with a sensei
Yeah.
with a camera for 7 years? Like, it just feels like such a similar jump, but you did it quicker. No
Thank
offense
you.
to QT. Like, yeah.
I appreciate it, James. It means a
Mm,
lot. I mean, I wrote the film when I was 18. So
yeah.
that's coming from a perspective, again, talking about characters and being able to relate to the characters and how they're feeling about themselves. This was a film that came from the perspective of someone who was down and out, and someone who was feeling a lot of isolation at that point in my life, maybe still feeling the same way. I don't know. No, but it's all about perspective for me when I'm coming up with these stories and when I'm trying to direct, when I'm trying to write, and especially as I'm trying to make films, right? Make independent feature films. There's always going to be that learning process, and if I'm not learning, then I'm doing something wrong, right? There's no money to be made from this. I have no other reason to be doing this other than the fact that I feel very, very, very committed to this, very
Yeah.
committed to these stories, and so in saying that, I also feel committed to the idea of, well, how can I do things better? How can I make this a more enjoyable experience for someone to come sit down for an hour and give me time out of their day? And how can I tell stories that not only resonate with me, but can resonate with people, like resonate with people who may not understand the material beforehand, but they can watch the movie and maybe they can have a better understanding of some of these characters. How can we do that? And so that was for me the biggest jump from my first feature and my second feature was the learning process. And that's also what I hope for as far as going from my second feature to my third feature, trying to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing else that I noticed with this film, which is quite different from Edgex, is how
Mm.
much you utilize the real world. Edgex. I think there's maybe one or two external shots. It's been a moment since I've seen Edgex, but
Yeah,
I've seen it a
I
few times.
did a
But
lot of
it's mostly kind of shot inside an apartment. Whereas this, you go out into the world and you kind of like you're in the open air, which adds a real layer of depth to it. Like I love it when filmmakers are like, let's use the real sky. Let's use the. But I'm sure that presents its own
yeah.
challenges. So
Oh,
was that deliberate, and what was that like? Kind of
mm,
stepping up there and going, outside. I'm sure people
yeah.
are like, "What does it matter?" It's like, no, it matters. Like it's hard to do.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked a little bit about this on my last appearance, right? Guerrilla filmmaking, man. I mean,
Mm.
what a fucking concept, right? Uh, um, as far as going outside, right? I mean, listen, this movie, it's about a sex worker. So
Mhm.
that's a given. We need to be honest with the material. We need to be
Mhm.
honest in trying to depict the material. And the people that we spoke to, right, and we consulted with, we openly tried to extend our hand in consulting with people from varying communities to discuss the material and how can we approach the material in a respectful way. And so in saying that, right, Pam being a sex worker, they're outside, they're doing
Mm.
their, and we see Pam meet a couple of customers and we see Pam doing this, we see Pam doing that. Same thing with Beetle as well. Um, Ultimately, being outside adds a whole new sort of immersive layer because this movie couldn't be shot in one room, right? That I want again, it's a learning process. From EdgeX, I learned like, hey, I don't want to use the same three locations. I want to try
Yeah.
and go around and do different things, man. Hey, sometimes that didn't work. Sometimes we got kicked out, but for most of the film, it was just fun going from place
Yeah.
to place, and yeah.
And one thing I liked, and we've talked about it a lot, but we haven't really addressed it, is that this is a film about a sex worker. And I
Mm,
feel like the obvious thing to do, especially if you're trying to kind of get attention on your film, is to really lean into that. But one thing I really admired about the film, and not that I would have dismissed if you did this, was there's pretty much no nudity in the flick. In fact, there's no. I think like at one point Tom is lying in bed or he's standing up, he's got a shirt off. But
yeah,
with the exception of that,
yeah,
it's like for a film about sex work, like if you compare it to, and I think the closest thing I could compare it to in recent years is probably something like Nora,
yeah.
which is
I got John. Yeah,
yeah, like I wouldn't go quite so far as to say that that it glamorizes it, but again, like
sure.
it's the more Hollywood version. Even though Sean's obviously very independent filmmaker and is a big
Yeah, of
advocate
course.
for it, it definitely feels like a bigger film. This is probably the
Sure,
closest thing to it, but that
sure.
film is scattered with nudity. And what's really impressive is you make a film about sex addiction and sex work, and
Mm,
even though they say show don't tell, you actually do a really good way of painting that picture without ever removing
showing.
clothing or getting gratuitous. Was that a challenge? Obviously, that was deliberate. Was that something when earlier drafts, had you envisioned it being more visually explicit, or kind of how was your approach there?
I don't think there was ever an explicit way of wanting to tell this story because for us, the movie does revolve around a sex worker, and that was
Mm.
extremely important. However, the actual movie itself is not about being a sex worker necessarily. It's about
Yeah.
being human. Like the way we approach the story, and I say that in the most respectful way because we were approaching it more from a philosophical standpoint,
Mm.
and we wanted people to understand Pam as a person,
Yeah.
right? And that's not to say that if we showed Pam, having sex, that would dehumanize them. And that's not at all what I'm saying. However, I think coming from a more philosophical standpoint of the story, we wanted to show the struggles of Pam figuring out how to be that person, right? With little peaks and peaks at like what Pam's actually doing, right? At Pam being an expert, at Pam being an addict. We see little glimpses of that. But
Yeah.
ultimately, there's a center in the film, I feel. And the center, we always try and come back to that center. And that center is Pam figuring their life out,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. It was something that we deliberately discussed,
Yeah.
Tom was very comfortable and on board with anything I would have asked of him. But as far as making the film, we had a lot of internal discussions about like, hey, let's approach this and really try and understand Pam like mentally. Yeah.
No, absolutely. What I'm finding is at the very start of the interview, I'm like, this is a film about being human. And every question I ask, I'm like, well, yeah, you said it's about being human. I'm like,
Well, you're on the money, man. Yeah, absolutely.
awesome. So, what is the state of the flick right now? It's on, and we'll talk about the release and where people can watch it soon. But you've done a couple of festivals, and it seems to be getting wonderfully received. Is there more to the festival journey? Are you still screening it for longer? Like, what's that whole process like?
We're just about over with the festivals. We've had a 6 to 7 to 8 month run so far,
Oh, wow.
going to some festivals in the tri-state area and stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. The reception we've been able to receive from these festivals, it's been great. I mean, this is my first ever festival run. So it's been exciting. It's been a great time. It's also taught me a lot. I can't say I understood the concept of festivals as a filmmaker beforehand because this is my second film. So I'm learning the ropes, man, and it's been a great time. And so the way we viewed this film is we just want people to see it. We want people to see the story, and we've had enough time to going to some really cool festivals where we can use this film sort of as a calling card for what we want to try and achieve in the future. So then with future films, we can sort of keep it in festivals, more so on the national circuit in the United States and try and keep it for an extended period of time out there. But as of this interview, we're pretty much just focused on YouTube, getting to see it for free anywhere anywhere they're at, whether it's at home or here or there. We just want people to see the movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I saw I think it was yesterday, I saw Film Threat wrote about you, which was that was pretty cool. That was a big deal.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool review,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it's time. They wrote us a really, really sweet review. It was very kind. And I have an autographed poster of Sean Baker's. Technically, it's his third film, but I think he would consider it his second film, Prince of Broadway. I have an autographed poster of that signed by the writer Darren Dean, and on the poster is like a review from Film Threat. So
that's cool.
yeah, so it's pretty cool to see that our film, got a really nice reception from such a great indie website.
Yeah, that's very, very cool, man. And you mentioned you're using it as a bit of you're hoping it'll act as a bit of a calling card. Has there been, does a film like this, in a world that has true justice, a film like this would garner more work, surely, but have you had a chance to build connections? Have people kind of been inquiring about the next project? Have just doing the festivals, has that kind of expanded your web in terms of casting opportunities? What has the film done on that side of things for you?
So far we've met a lot of great people, throughout this journey of Beautiful Pam. I guess I'll have to see where this journey goes as I'm developing the next, and then I'll come back to you and let you know. Hopefully by that point it will have worked out, and I will have been able to put to use some of those connections we made. But we've met some great people, man. I mean, people have been responding to the film really well, and our big thing has been like, hey, indie film is not dead. And I don't mean $5 million movie. Like there are plenty of $5 million movies. This is a movie we made for like $500. Indie film is not dead. People picking up a camera and shooting with people they know. That shouldn't be a dead concept.
No.
We need to, I think, foster our storytellers, and especially storytellers in my generation. There's so many wonderfully talented filmmakers that I'm friends with and that I know, and I want us to have the chance to keep telling our stories. Even if we're not getting the same risk taken on us by studios and companies. I think storytelling at an independent level, it's at risk, and we need to try and keep going with that.
You mentioned the budget. Is it? Because I read online, and never trust the internet. The internet was telling me that Pam was cheaper than EdgeX, and
Yeah.
it said it was about $2.5 grand. Is that about right? Are you allowed to talk about it? If you can't
No.
talk about money, obviously.
Honestly, we've been telling people that it costs $2,500 just so people, before they watch the movie, they hear $500 and they're like, I'm not fucking watching that.
Yeah.
2,500 sounded like a little better of a number, but at this point, as we're wrapping up our festival run, I mean, everyone a part of the film volunteered. Our locations, either we didn't ask for permission or we did have permission, and they donated their space. We were able to make this movie because so many people believed in the concept of it. They believed in the film itself, and they believed in each other, and they believed in me, and that means the world. So we spent money on the necessities like food, travel, things of that sort, Uber, the trains, like Taco Bell, pizza.
Yeah.
It's tough, it's tough. We would like to crowdfund a little for our next film, just so we have an opportunity to go through that learning process of crowdfunding and trying to raise a little bit of money. But at the same time, people are struggling, and I hate asking for money. So, we'll see what happens. It's all a learning process.
It's insane to me that you made that movie for $500. Like that should not be that shouldn't be possible. Like it looks the fact that it did, and obviously obviously people didn't get paid and stuff, like you mentioned that, and like you did on the cheap. So Hollywood would never follow that model, but it just reiterates that point even more. Like, why aren't they funding these independent films? Like, you know what I mean?
I ask myself that all the time.
Like, if you made that movie for $5,000, I mean, everyone got paid a little bit. Like, surely the dividends, like it would.
I think we all agree with that.
That's
I think
insane.
again, it speaks to the character of the people that did work on the film.
Yeah.
We were honest, we were transparent. I said, listen, guys, amongst ourselves, we all said, there's no money to be made from this. So if you don't want to do this, no one's telling you to, but we are making this film. And if you want to be a part of this journey with us, then we'd love to have you, and throughout that process, we met. I mean, we all became kind of a family, I mean, there's so many amazing people that worked on this film. And again, a big thing for me as a filmmaker is I want the people that work on the film to be able to say to themselves, wow, I really enjoyed that. I feel ownership of it. I never want someone that worked on this film to say, JR's film. I want them to say my film. I want them to say, I worked on this film. That's the type of filmmaker I'd like to be, and that's the type of environment I'd like to foster amongst my collaborators.
It's it speaks to the work, because even though it is, as I said, like it's at times quite devastating, and it goes into very dark and fringe places we talked about. You can feel the love in the film, and it's not just because love is a central theme. Like, it is a central theme, obviously, like this idea of self-love and non-romantic love, but you can just feel it doesn't feel manufactured. It doesn't feel like they hired a team of people and they made the movie. It's like you can feel like everyone wants to be there. You can kind of feel the care in there. It's just such a beautiful, like, again, it feels weird to say it's a beautiful film, because again, like, so many things in it are not beautiful. Like, the way people treat each other, the way they speak to each other, like, but yet it's this kind of triumph of looking for the best in humanity even when you're at your lowest. It's just a gorgeous piece. Like, it's such a triumph, man. Like,
thank you so much, James. I appreciate it. It means a lot. I mean, again, the reception we've gotten, it truly, truly means the world. And for me, again, people taking the time, I've said this a couple times, people taking the time out of their day to watch it, that's the win in my book. And the fact that people are receiving it well, that's just the cherry on top for us. We're excited to get this story out there.
Was there what am I trying to say? This film is half the length of EdgeX. Was that a deliberate choice? Were you like, oh man, my first movie was too long, even though I don't think it was?
Yeah.
Were you like, it was too long, I need to cut it down? Or were you was it more because of the themes of this film you felt like you didn't want to overwhelm the senses for too long? Or what was the kind of idea behind making such a short feature? Like it's barely an hour long, which makes
Yeah.
it an easy watch, but like, was there kind of a thought process behind that?
You know, in an age where attention spans are bad, I
Yeah.
think I was getting a little tired of people telling me, "Oh, I watched some of your movie. I'll watch the rest of it another day," because it was
Oh,
so.
yeah.
That's mostly a joke, but Edgex, it was over 2 hours,
Mm,
and I love a long movie,
mm,
but I also feel that, again, going back to that learning process, going from my first feature to my second feature,
mm.
there was a lot of stuff I wish I would have cut. There was a lot of
Yeah.
stuff, again, learning how to edit. You know,
Mm,
so with Pam, there was stuff that I cut. There was
mm,
dialogue that I cut.
mm.
We probably slashed the movie down from like 75 minutes of
Okay.
like. Yeah, like without any cuts, there probably would have been like 75 to 80 minutes, and then we cut it down to about 63 or so. Um, I feel that runtime is important, especially with an independent film. It's hard to convince people. This is me being 100% honest.
Yeah.
It's hard to convince people to sit down and watch a 2-hour movie from a guy no one's ever heard of about characters and actors no one's ever heard of. It's hard to ask people to do that, and I experienced that firsthand. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be a dick here, but it was hard.
Yeah.
It was tough, and in making this film, I said to myself, I want to make this approachable. I don't want people to see a runtime and feel turned away, because that is the state of movie watching now. I mean, again, in an age where my attention span is even horrible, like attention spans are not good. It's hard to convince people to come sit down and watch a 2-hour movie that that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
So runtime was something I definitely kept in mind a lot when I was making the film. I don't think I set out to make like a 60-minute feature. I would have liked to, like, that sort of sweet spot of like 80 to 90. But again, next time, that's the sweet spot I'd like to try and hit, is 80 to 90 minutes. I feel like that's just a perfect, like, standard sort of indie film runtime.
Yeah. It works though. Like one thing when I saw the runtime, I was like, gee, this is short, it's gonna be quick. And I
Yeah.
feel like so often when I watch, because I love a 90-minute film. Like I love my 3-hour
Yeah.
movies. I like my 4-hour movies. The runtime
Exactly.
doesn't bother me, but it will impact my decision making if I'm short on
Oh,
time.
yeah.
If it's getting late, I'm like, oh, we'll do the quick one tonight.
Yeah.
Um, or I'll, now that I have children, I watch things in installments. I'm like, all right, I'll watch half of it this morning and come back. But
Yeah.
one thing
Yeah.
I've noticed is it feels lately a lot of the 90-minute films are cutting too much content, where it's like
Yeah.
they're focused to get it, like, because studios' motivation is like, if we make it shorter, it plays more time, we got more money. And I'll watch a 90-minute film, like, man, this feels like it was just lacking something. I watched Beautiful Pam, and I don't know what you could have put in there. I'm like, it is the perfect runtime. Like,
Thank
it
you.
doesn't drag, it doesn't feel long, but it feels very full. It feels like you're
Yeah.
covering a lot of content in a short period of time, where I'm like, I don't know what you would add to it to improve it. So, whilst an hour 3 is a very unusual runtime for a feature, I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't think. I think
No.
like Pam is exactly as long as Pam needs to be.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and another thing too that we were considering was festivals.
Mm,
Festivals, they're struggling. Indie
yeah.
festivals are struggling. It's hard to get people to come, and it's hard to
Mm,
get people in seats. And so, coming from the philosophy of a festival, they don't want to program a 2-hour movie or a 2-hour indie film, right? That, again, no one's heard of, because
mm,
that means there's less films that they can program.
yeah.
So I think that's definitely helped us too on the festival circuit, is we've been able to be really accessible and like really fluid when it comes to festivals, because we do have a shorter feature run.
So EdgeX got eventually a physical release. The DVD Are there plans to get Pam on disc as well? Are we going to see a DVD or something in the future of Pam?
Absolutely, 100%.
Nice, very cool.
I wanted to go back on that wall behind you. I love that.
Yeah, I still got to get EdgeX.
I
Wherever you.
X,
Yeah,
absolutely.
this is me calling you out on my show. I'm like, oh, by the way, like you went to a retailer, and I think I contacted them like, yeah, we don't ship to Australia. I was like, damn it, like I love it, but
Yeah. We're gonna
uh,
get you an Edgex DVD. Don't worry.
yeah, nice. Yeah, I can't wait to like Pam is one. Like EdgeX is one where I watched it. I think I watched it 3 or 4 times, And I was like, all right,
Thank
I'm
you.
good for a while. Like it's heavy. Like
Yeah,
it's really heavy. This
thank
is
you.
heavy, but I can't wait to watch Pam again. And this is one I feel like I can bring to people and be like, it's going to challenge you, but you're going to dig it. Like just
Yeah,
stay with
please
it.
do.
Like
Yeah, please do. I
yeah,
appreciate
like
it.
Pam is one, and again, like the runtime definitely helps. But I just had such a wonderful time with it. I felt very full afterwards. I was like, man, this is a
Thank
really like it was very like nurturing in a weird way. Because again, like it's not necessarily a happy film, but it
you.
feels very very human, which we keep coming back to, which I guess is the
Yeah,
most important thing.
that's
Yeah.
the center of the movie, man. And
Mm.
like we were talking about physical media, that's so important. In the landscape of indie film, right? We've absolutely lost sight on physical media. And I don't think that's the filmmaker's fault, you know. I'm
Uh,
not gonna yeah, you know, I mean it's definitely not the filmmaker's fault on that side of things. However, there is less of a priority in the studio system to push out physical media, you know, and
yeah.
the person that does affect the most is the filmmaker. Right? At
Mm.
the end of the day, physical media was a huge aspect of not only getting your film recognized if it didn't have a good theatrical run, but also it just got the work out there. You know, and it helped make
Absolutely.
it helped make money for the studio. You know, I mean, you'd think that they'd want to push physical media. So that's something we're losing sight of, and that's something that is very important to me. Now, as far as like getting this distributed and stuff and finding, you know, that sort of thing, it's tough, you know, for
Mm.
edX to use like a website that said, you know, hey, we'll make your DVDs, and I think they did a solid job. I think they did fine as far as Beautiful Pam goes. We'd like to try and have a Blu-ray release, but
Mm.
it really boils down to like what's available to us, you
For
know. So
sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
I,
for
I
those and for those who don't know, like Edge X, you were selling for $1. You're like, it's on DVD, it's $1. Like that's unheard of. Like people don't, do you know what I mean? So, and because your philosophy to me has always been, it's not about the money; it's about getting the work out. So
that's
we
exactly
need
it.
to charge something for shipping, so $1. But like, yeah, that's yeah.
I, and you know, I don't ever want that to feel like a gimmick. Like I don't want
Mm.
people to be like, "Oh, that's the guy who cares about that." Like, "Oh, affordability." It is an affordability thing, but
Mm.
it's also getting the work out there. You know,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
not about the money, and that's not a gimmick. That's just the
Yeah,
truth. You know? I've been saying to myself a lot: if you're trying to make films because you want to get rich, that's not going to happen. And I've
yeah,
said that to myself. And hey, that's like a sad reality to face. Like I'm
yeah,
like, am I going to be like a broke bum forever? Maybe.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'll still be able to try and get these stories out there,
Mm.
and that's my life. That is
Yeah,
my life, is getting these stories out there. And if I'm fucking, if I'm broke and nobody knows who I am, people know the films, and that's what matters to me.
yeah. Absolutely. The physical media thing is something I'm always talking about. Like, obviously, like this is just a very small section of my wall. It goes all the way down there.
Oh,
Um,
I see pictures, man.
yeah, yeah. But
Link.
it is nice to see certain creators out there. Obviously, like Christopher Nolan's a big champion of it. Edgar Wright recently with Running Man, he was like, "You got to get it on Blu-ray because I'm loading up with features." Like, so it is
Yeah.
nice to see some people are still championing the format. But yeah, like where I am in Australia, like I order like most of my stuff online from overseas now, like because the
Yeah.
UK has got an incredible physical media presence still, thankfully. So you got to go do a festival over there so you can get your movie in
Oh, I'd
stores
love to, man.
over there.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a big. I took my daughter from school the other day, and I did like a Blu-ray trip because of Blu-rays, and I was like, hey, look what I got! I bought a movie, and some parents were like, oh, I haven't seen one of those in years. I was like,
Wow.
that's
Oh,
your fault. Like you're part of the problem. Like they
yeah,
never went away. Like I'm
I
trying. I
agree.
can't.
I agree with you. And also, like we were talking about as far as price point for physical
Mm,
media, as long as I have control over that sort of thing, I
mm,
never, ever, ever want people to be priced out
yeah.
of kids supporting me and supporting my
Mm,
work, you know. And right now, I do have control over that, and so
mm,
that's why I don't care about dollar DVDs, you know.
yeah.
And if we're able to get a Blu-ray release, then I want to try and make that as affordable as possible for people,
Yeah.
you know. And I want people that don't even collect DVDs or Blu-rays to be able to have the chance to check it out on a physical media. You know, that's
Yeah.
important. Absolutely.
So important. It's so important. Like there's just and like my daughter's going to be the weird kid in school because all of her friends' families have streaming, and yes, we do have that. But her dad's a wacky dude who collects DVDs. She's got a Blu-ray collection,
Nice,
and
man.
it's like yeah, like yeah. And it's just I'm trying to explain to him like, look, do you want to scroll through a screen for like 3 hours and not choose something, or do you want to pick something up, have a look, and be like, yeah, I'll give it a go. 'Cause that's the way
Yeah,
we did it when we were younger. You got the video, so you're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, the box art
absolutely.
looks cool. We'll give it a go.
My
Um,
parents my parents had a wall unit, and they still do. They've sold a lot of DVDs, you know, yard sales and stuff over the years.
Mm.
But when I was younger, you know, they had a huge like wall unit full of DVDs. And as a little kid, like, you know, practically a toddler, like 4 years old, and you know, around that age, I would fucking ravage through their wall unit and pick out DVDs and be like, this looks cool. What's this about? What's this about?
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, looking back now, like, it would be like Fight Club. I'd be like, hey, Mom, Dad, what's this movie about or something?
Yeah.
Like, what? Yeah, like, you know, like Devil's Rejects, you know, like Rob Zombie, what's this about, you know? But also, like, my parents would get kids movies for me on DVD. My first ever DVD that I actually remember like having myself was my dad brought home Star Wars Revenge of the Sith on DVD. And I was very, very young, but I really treasured that because I really love DVDs. I love going ravaging through my parents' fucking DVD collection, man. I loved, you know, looking at all the films and stuff, and like even like I was huge into animated films around that time, you know, Toy Story and WALL-E and things of that sort. And these were films that like I'd watch on DVD and I'd be like, holy shit, wow, this is so fucking cool, you know. This movie came from this little box, from this little disc. So that physical media is something that's always been a part of my life, and it always will be.
And that's the thing, like that's the thing that they like modern audiences like don't understand. Although I keep seeing articles about how Gen Z is saving physical media, which I'm like, great, I love it.
Yeah.
I'm not like because a lot of people get angry about that. They're like, we've been there for ages. I'm like, yeah, that's not the point. Of course, we've been there for ages, but now a new audience is finding it's good. But like what people don't realize, and people who go to streaming is like, no. If you open this box and you take out this disc or this tape, there's an entire universe in here. Like that's the power of physical media, and that's what I'm trying to teach my kid. Like I take her to the movies, like as you know, it's been a little bit hard lately with the baby and stuff, but I've taken her a couple of times recently. But like last year and the year before, like 6-7 times in a year, just like, all right, kids' films out, let's go. And if she likes the film, we pick it up on Blu-ray. I had a really fun moment with her last year. I took her to one of the Disney films, Elio. And she didn't dig it. It wasn't really for her, which I really liked it, but she didn't.
Right.
And about halfway through the flick, she goes, "Dad," and like so everyone can hear, "You don't need to buy this one on Blu-ray." I was like, "Oh, the critic has spoken."
Yeah, what a great story. Hey, maybe she'll have her own podcast one day. You know, maybe she'll take over Teenage Film Snob.
Yeah, maybe. She rustles it from my cold dead hands. She is on an episode. She's on the 100th episode. She does the introduction, but she's like 3 years old. So
that's amazing.
But I'm trying to impart that to her, and obviously as my son gets older, if he shows an interest, like I'll go. I never forced it on her. Like she just kind of saw it. And she's like, she saw all of this the way I saw the video store when I walked in. She was like, what is all of this and what does it mean? I was like, well, now that you've asked the question, your education begins, and then you kind of go through all that, and yeah. So if he shows an interest, then I'll get him into it as well. But it's just about like you're doing the same thing, like you're creating these stories. Hopefully, that people will be like, oh, what's this? Okay, cool. Like it's just.
I would hope so. You know,
all we're doing is passing the story on to the next generation, and hopefully, you know, someone will want to buy a DVD or sit down for an hour and watch a flick, and you know. Obviously, you may not be able to say too much, but you did very briefly tease your third flick. Have you started working on it? Have you started thinking about it? Or are you like, dude, I've been dealing with Edgex and Pam for like the last 3 years. I need a break. Or you don't seem like the kind of person to me who wants a break. You seem to me like who's like, as soon as something's wrapped up, before it's wrapped up, let's get the new one started. Have you started thinking about number 3?
I haven't thought about number 3. You know, there's a lot I'd like to say that I'd rather, you know, have people see it. You know, I'd rather let the word speak for itself as opposed to, you know, talking about it. But in saying that, I'm not gonna be a dick.
No. Like, because I'm being a dick. Because I'm like, I know you can't tell me stuff.
No. It's exciting. You know, I think it'll be a big swing. You know, you know, think of movies like Killing of a Chinese Bookie. You know, sort of that like Safdie brothers sort of thing. You know. And of course my guy Sean Baker and Aronofsky, you know, it's sort of, again, it's intended to be an elevation of what we've seen, and I like to retain sort of the same tone of Pam in a way, because I think the tone of, I've had people say to me, sometimes I laughed and sometimes I cried, and that's life, right? Life is about, being a little sad sometimes, being a little happy, man, and that's sort of the same tone I'd like to retain in this next film. And again, there's a lot I'd like for people to see before I say it, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think it's going to be, in terms of story, I think it'll be different from what we've seen so far as my first two films. But it'll retain some of the qualities that I think people have really resonated with across my two films. So I'm grateful to work on it.
I think it's so funny that you're like, this next film is a big swing. And I'm like, these films weren't? So, like, I feel like you're a director that only takes big swings, which I think is why the work resonates so much with me and why I really dig you as a filmmaker and a person. Like, we talk about it shockingly a lot on this show. It was never part of the DNA, but often when I speak to people, a common theme that comes up is we like seeing artists who take big swings. Because at the end of the day, if you deliver a film that's subpar or doesn't deliver on expectations, it's like, that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
Did you take a big swing? You did. Then holy Christ, and I'm there for it, and I'm there for the next one as well. Like that's
Thanks.
me. Like my wife, one day came in here. She's looking at all the movies, and she goes, "What are you gonna do if you buy?" Because I blind buy pretty much everything. If I don't see it in theaters, I'll just buy it blind and then hope for the best. And she goes, "What happens the day you buy something and you don't like it? Like, what are you gonna do with the movies you don't like?" I was like, "Well, that just hasn't happened yet." Like, and not in like a, like I obviously my online presence, I'm very much the guy who loves everything, and that's not entirely true.
Yeah.
Like, there are definitely films I don't love,
Of course.
but my philosophy has always been, or at least since this show started and the lead up to the show, as I kind of changed my perspective, is if I don't like the film, it doesn't resonate with me, fine. What's something I did like? What's something I do love? And so, like, the challenge me, because I just feel like the internet, like, is just it hasn't stopped. The internet has only gotten worse in terms of online criticism, and it's not criticism, because criticism is a fair and balanced conversation about both. What it is people just like if you want to see like the plague of the internet, go and look at the comment section of that Harry Potter trailer that came out last week. Like, that's do you know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. And it's like, for me, I'm like, okay, sure, you can all do that. I'm going to take a different approach. I didn't dig it. What did I like about it? And try and find that. Like, and that's so I don't have a film in the collection that I don't like, but I do appreciate those filmmakers and storytellers who are like, everyone's going to hate this probably because I'm taking a big swing. But like, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you can't say I didn't try to do something different. And you've done the magic trick of taking two big swings and executing something that I've really dug twice in a row, which is something for Magic Trick in its own. So,
wait till you see the third one. There's going to be a lot of crazy stuff on that one.
You're going to do the Ari Aster, where it's like everyone loved Hereditary, everyone loved Midsommar, and then Beau is Afraid came out, and people are like, "What?" I like Beau is Afraid, so
I love that. I saw that in theaters. It was great.
Yeah, me too.
I also love Eddington as well. I know that's a little controversial opinion.
I liked Eddington as well. I've only watched it once, and it was after my son was born, so like I was a bit sleep deprived. So by the end, I'm like, "What's going on?" But I did like it, because I went to that whole point of view thing, and like, so I got to give it another spin. But I did like it.
You said a few great things. I know we're wrapping up in a few, but you said a few great things that I wanted to touch on real quick. Number one, I think you're a true champion of film, James. You truly do care about film across the spectrum of the culture, right? Pop culture and such, but also especially independent film, man. And I think that speaks to you as your character, and especially the show itself. And that's really important. And that's especially important when we talk about indie film isn't dead. This is what's important, is being able to, you're providing a platform for filmmakers and for, your friends and things of that sort to come on here and talk about movies. And I hope you never lose sight of that, because you're doing a wonderful job, and I appreciate it. And as far as trying to take big swings and stuff, and again, I always want to try and tell stories that resonate with me personally on a personal level, and in return, hopefully people on their personal levels also relate to it. I think in developing this third feature, you're not going to see anything, for anyone listening that liked Beautiful Pam, you saw the film, you're not going to see anything that would be out of the ordinary. You're not going to see things that, like, really, because again, there's always going to be, I always want to be able to retain that human element of the story and the characters, but in terms of where we're going with the plot and where we're
Mm.
going with this or that and setting, we're going to be shooting in the city, New York City and Manhattan and things of that sort. It's exciting stuff, man, and it's stuff that I haven't done before, so it's all a learning process. I'm trying to elevate and get better and better.
Yeah. Well, you're doing it, man. Like it's so like again, like I can't express. I don't watch trailers very often. Like
Mhm.
I found like the climate in film distribution over the last decade or so, and it started a little bit before Batman v Superman, but that was
Yeah.
definitely the one that I think sticks out for most people. Is that in an effort to get more people in seats?
Mhm.
Because pre-pandemic they were worried about cinemas being full. Like, oh my god, like
Yeah.
they could never have seen the future.
Yeah.
Although I went and saw Sinners in a full theater last year, and
Yeah.
it was
They
like
went to one shot
like
too.
a Tuesday night. Like I went on a random night, and the theater was full, so that was nice. But
Yeah.
like in an effort to get more people in seats, they just started showing more and more. So at a certain point, I was like, you know what? I'm done watching trailers. Like I will
Mhm.
watch superhero trailers because I'm not too worried about spoilers and stuff. I'm like, just show me the costumes. But anything else, like unless it's in the theater, I'm going in blind.
Sure.
I cannot explain like the profound effect the trailer for Pam had on me. Like
Thank you.
knowing what you had made, and like because a trailer, it's not like studios will say it's about selling the film, and yes, like to a certain extent, but it's not about selling the film. It's about selling a feeling. It's about letting the
That's
audience know
exactly
this is a taste of what you're going to get. Like it needs to have it needs to impact you. You need to feel something. If you don't connect with the trailer, why would you sit down for 2 hours and watch it in a theater? And like
it.
I watched that trailer, and first of all, as I said, like just seeing that opening shot and recognizing, I'm like, I don't know if this dude got expensive cameras or what it is, but this looks
Same camera as Ajax.
that's so funny because the Edge
One.
X looks so different. It looks
Thank
so
you.
different. Yeah, like
Thank you
that
very much.
opening shot, I'm like, oh my god, like this dude has elevated this game in a big bad way. And then just like
Thanks, man.
seeing Tom's performance in particular, like you've done for, I feel like, and this might be a weird comparison, but I've been doing that all day. I feel like you've done for Tom what the Saw franchise did for Tobin Bell, where like
Mm,
Tobin Bell had this career for years and no
sure.
one knew who he was, and then suddenly his Jigsaw and people are obsessed with him. I've never heard of Tom before. I've never seen any of his work to the best of my knowledge. And like I'm like, why has this guy been hiding? And I'm sure, and, like we know the
He's an
truth. He hasn't been
incredible.
hiding. He's not hiding. He's been working. He's been doing the work for decades, and now we get to see what
I
decades of
agree.
dedication to a craft can bring, and it's just
I
incredible.
agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, Tom took a chance on working with me. Tom took a
Mm,
chance on doing this film, and I'm
mm,
forever indebted to Tom as a person, as a
mm,
talent. And Tom's performance. It's amazing, man. And
mm,
and like you said, working class actors who have been working for decades. It's nice when they finally get a role and
mm.
people are really recognizing them for that. And
Yeah.
in Tom's case, that's very much applicable.
Yeah.
Tom's a great person and a great
Mm,
actor, and our entire cast. That's again, that's
yeah.
the thing about this movie. They're filled with so many great people. Same thing with Peter and Beck and
Yeah.
Jason and all these people. So many great people, and Tom especially leading the charge it was a privilege to work with him.
Yeah. It's an absolute triumph, man. Like it's easily the best flick I've watched this year, and like there's a lot of films I'm looking forward to this year, which are going to have a lot more, colorful tights and spandex and stuff in it. But in terms of human stories, like
Yeah.
again, I haven't watched a ton from 2026 this year, but I've watched enough, and this is the first
Mm.
one where I was like, okay, that's there's the connection point, but I hadn't connected emotionally with a film release this year yet, and now I found that. So now, like that's the bar. Like that
Mhm.
is the bar that has been set, and every other film that comes out this year between now and like New Year's Eve, like has to meet that bar. Because
Thank
you've
you so much.
and it's so nice as well. Like, and again, it's a little bit different because it's independent, and you kind of been doing the festival circuit for a while. But it's so nice to have a flick of such kind of moral fiber and quality come out so early in the year. Like generally, like the January to March is like is
Usually,
the
like
dump is it's the
a
dumping ground. Like,
yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, I can't wait to see Primate, but I know why it was released in January. Do you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, totally. I
but
appreciate
Pam,
it.
like, it's like it just feels like it's like it's nice to see something so
Mhm.
lovingly crafted and so meaningful come out so early. Like reminding viewers that hey, you don't have to wait till summer. Like,
Yeah.
there's good movies out there coming
We
out
gotta wait
before
till
then.
award season in the fall. Yeah, totally. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. It means a lot, James. We did pinpoint specifically to like, hey, let's do March. Because
Yeah.
you said it's sort of a dead period. And we want to try and get eyes on it. So
Yeah.
if you're listening now, please go check out the movie.
So it's out on YouTube right now. People
Yeah.
can go and watch it.
Yes. As of listening to you,
Excellent.
absolutely.
I will share the link today. Like, obviously we're recording. This is going to come a couple of weeks from today, but I
Mhm.
will share the link today so people can go and watch it because I'm mad about it.
Thanks
I can't
so
wait to
much.
watch it again. And then we'll put the link in the show notes as well when the episode drops. So go
Cool.
check it out.
Perfect. Thank
Um,
you so much for having me, man. This has been
It's
incredible.
been an absolute joy, man. I was like,
Thank-
as I said, I was so looking forward to catching up with you and seeing the flick.
Yeah,
And
likewise.
it took me a little while, but we got there. And again, like it's just an incredible feat, man. Do you want to, before we get, do you want to tell people where they can find you and how they can support the flick and stuff like that?
They can find me on Instagram. My Instagram username is Sid Cinematics, so at Sid Cinematics. And the film is also available on YouTube for free on the Sid Cinematics YouTube channel. The film is called Beautiful Pam. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much to James for having me. It's always a privilege being on here. It's an honor to get to speak with you about my work, and it's wonderful chatting with you, man. So thank you.
It's been an absolute joy, man. Go and check out the flick, guys. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, it's gonna challenge you for sure, but it's gonna resonate in such a beautiful way. Like, you don't. Yeah, just go and see it. It's an hour. Like, what are you doing? An hour? You're gonna scroll on your phone for an hour. Go and check out this flick. Like, you can check out Instagram later. That's gonna do it. What an incredible episode. Thanks again, JR, for coming on. It's always fun having you on. Go and support the flick, and we'll be back next week with something that's way less important than this for sure. But we'll be talking about flicks. That's gonna do it for this week's episode of the show. As I say every week, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. We'll see you next week.